Academy Award winners Matt Damon and Christian Bale star in the movie Ford versus Ferrari. The film tells the story of Ford's effort to beat Ferrari, specifically at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France. The movie takes place in 1966 and follows Ford's ambition to really make an impact in the racing world. The cars in the 2019 movie were built right here at home in South Africa at a factory in Port Elizabeth. For more on this, we're joined by Peter Lindenberg, CEO of Shelby, South Africa, as well as head of marketing and events at Paige Lindenberg. Welcome to you both. It's great to have you on Morning Live. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
It's
Peter,
great, yeah.
I'll start with you. For the sake of our viewers who may not know the history of this rivalry between Ford and Ferrari, won't you briefly take us through how it all started?
Now, so in the early days, early 60s, Carroll Shelby, who was the founder of Shelby, decided to literally take on the establishment in a car of his own. We got a British sports car and he shoehorned a big American monster V8 into it, and it was competitive, and he made major changes. He changed the direction of racing sports cars in the world. And Ferrari were dominant a few years later, literally dominant, winning Le Mans year after year after year. And this Henry Ford II didn't like it and wanted to win, and decided that they were going to have a go with basically an unlimited budget. They tried first to come to a deal with Ferrari, to buy Ferrari. And Enzo Ferrari was a pretty difficult old man, and he snubbed them, and in the end he walked away. And Ford were just so hacked off with what had happened. Man. They decided, that's it. We'll do what it takes, spend what we got to spend, and we're going to go out there and we're going to beat Ferrari.
We're going to take on the beast.
That's the story behind the movie.
Paige, of course, this movie is really based on a true story, as Peter has just, given us a brief synopsis. What would you say does this movie really brings the viewer into the history of the cars, or the people that made the cars, the people who love the cars? Why do people even like a Ford over Ferrari or Ferrari over a Ford?
Yeah, so I think liking a Ferrari or a Ford is personal preference, or you've grown up with people. Like, I've grown up with a father who's a Ford man and Shelby man, so I've always been biased to Ford and Shelby. I do love Ferraris, though. I love all cars. The movie for me is really important for our brand as Shelby South Africa and Shelby globally, because I think it really teaches the youth who don't understand cars and the history of 1966, because a lot of us weren't around then. It really explains where Shelby comes from and why it is the brand it is today. And for me, and that's so important, because you see Shelby everywhere. It's in movies and PlayStation games and computer games, but the youth of today, or the millennials, don't really know the history of Shelby and where it came from and why it is the brand that it is. And this movie is just going to show you why we are so passionate about the brand and why the brand is so important. The movie is also it's not just for car lovers. The movie has, women walked out of there on Thursday night with like tissues and tears, because there's such an emotional family dynamic to it, that it's not just about cars and racing, but it's a true family story with emotion that's going to grab anybody, not just a car lover. So.
I think that is even more special, because looking at you guys and how you relate in that relationship. So I think this interview is actually so much more special. Peter, I want to talk about where these cars were built in Port Elizabeth here in South Africa. Do you know how much time it took to build the cars and what the brief was?
It's just one of those other really important, good South African stories.
Yeah.
And just to put in context for your viewers, at that high-tech facility in Port Elizabeth, they build the approved, licensed Shelby legendary cars, so the copies of those cars from way back then, for the global market.
That is insane.
It is insane, and people don't know about it. And the quality of the cars is like super good, literally super good. And Jimmy Price, who owns High-Tech Automotive, and I've been mates for over 40 years. And he told us how it happened. He got a call from the States to say, they're going ahead with this movie, Ford versus Ferrari, and this is the cars we need, this, in these colors, and you've got X amount of time to get it done, because we're air freighting them to the United States to get going.
And it was
that
done.
quick. And it was, well, he had to. I mean, sometimes in life you get a deadline and it's non-negotiable. And he got a non-negotiable deadline.
Absolutely. Paige, I know that Matt Damon as well as Christian Bale actually signed on the dash of the car. Do you know about any other special features that come with the car, or things that the fans who watch the movie will actually like or enjoy about the cars that were made?
Yeah, so what we did is I actually flew over to Paris. So I first went by America.
Without me.
I know. I had a waiting list, I promise you, from here to Timbuktu of people who wanted to come. But I had the opportunity to fly over to the States. I had a meet with Shelby, who's Carol Shelby's grandson, and he signed the dashboard along with a whole load of other memorabilia, model cars, T-shirts and things, which we're still going to chat about later after the premieres. And then I got to meet Christian Bale and Matt Damon and James Mangold, who's the director of the film, and they signed the dashboard. And that's been put into the car we've had at the premiere in Joburg, and we're taking it to Durban and Cape Town. And that GT40 is actually being auctioned off for charity. So all the funds we raise from that car, we're putting into a bursary program to put kids through tertiary education and then bring them into our businesses on internship to create a future for young individuals in South Africa.
All right, Paige, unfortunately we'll have to leave it there. Peter and Paige, thank you so much for coming.